Hello, BookTube. I have a little Friday Reads / TBR torture for you, because as we've covered on this channel before, although the Geneva Conventions forbid torture of humans, they say nothing about torturing your TBRs. So I'm going to parade an endless number of books in front of you, and maybe all of them are going to end up on your Amazon wish list. Who knows? But I have not read any of these. I have 5 books I want to show you. I've not read any of them except the last one I have read chunks of. Even though I've never seen the book before. How's that going to work? So the first one is a grim subject, but it's one that I try never to miss a book on. And it is by Khaled El-Gidi, and it's Blind Spot: America and Palestine from Balfour to Trump. First time those two names have ever appeared in a title together. And this author has been on the front lines of Israel-Palestine negotiation for the better part of 2 decades. So he knows the subject really, really well. And this is coming out from the Brookings Institute in April, I believe. Yeah, April 2nd, of course. Everything comes out on April 2nd. Unlike other books on the subject, which often focus on a particular period or event, such as the Oslo process or the collapse of the Camp David negotiations in 2000, Blind Spot takes a comprehensive look at the nature and evolution of U.S. policy and American political attitudes towards Palestinians and Palestine over the last century in order to explain why U.S. attempts to broker a resolution of the conflict have repeatedly come up short. In this book, the author argues that while both Israelis and Palestinians undoubtedly share much of the blame, one cannot escape the role of the United States as the sole mediator in the process in these repeated failures. In short, U.S. peacemaking efforts ultimately ran aground as a result of Washington's unwillingness to confront Israel's ever-deepening occupation or to accommodate Palestinian politics. In making this case, the book looks at the interplay between the U.S.-led peace process and the internal Palestinian politics, namely how a badly flawed peace process helped to weaken Palestinian leaders and institutions, and how an increasingly dysfunctional Palestinian leadership in turn hindered prospects for a diplomatic solution. And I confess, I have lots of opinions on this subject. It's such an explosive subject that really, I can't actually write about this anywhere except on Open Letters Review, at least of my current venues. One of the things that I want more venues, of course, all the time. If you're a small town, if you're in a small town and it has a newspaper that runs original content, feel free to tell me in the comments field what that newspaper is. If they don't get all of their content from wire services, if they don't buy it, if they take original content from actual writers like me, from actual freelancers, then I want to write for them. I want to review books for them. But even so, unless you're watching me from Tel Aviv, a book like this, an editor will instantly say no to it. Because I've encountered this before in mainstream major publications where I've written. The hate mail goes on for months and months and months and months and months if you write even an even-handed review of books like this. So what I really need in 2019, in addition to other venues for book reviewing, is a political venue. Not for political op-eds or whatever, God forbid, I hope I never go back to that world, but book reviews, politically charged books. I get plenty of them, I read them all, and I have all sorts of opinions on the subject. I have an opinion on this subject, and it would get hate mail. It really would. I think you can see it in that pub sheet. The problem here, the essential problem here, is Israel, not Palestine. Israel is continuing to build settlements on land they are illegally occupying. And in order to do that, they have to shuffle its inhabitants elsewhere into an increasingly small area that has been called an open-air prison camp. And Israel, there's a special relationship, there's a special bond between Israel and United States, the power brokers of the United States government. There always has been, there always will be. It's a complicated thing. a great number, a great percentage of top Republican lawmakers in the United States are, it's an element of top Republican leadership that that Americans don't know or don't like to talk about, but a very large percentage of the most powerful Republican lawmakers in America in the last 50 years have also been crazed religious fanatics. There's no other way to put it. They don't just go to church on Sunday and try to be good people. They believe in a coming Armageddon. They believe in the rapture. They believe in that they are living in end times. They are in any other civilized country would view them as religious fanatics. The American public got a small taste of that with an absolute incoherent, gibberishly, visibly insane Republican named Sarah Palin. And a lot of America, I think, when they got a taste of her when she was briefly a farcical vice presidential candidate, I think a lot of Americans thought, okay, well, she's really weird. It's weird for a politician to start talking that way in the middle of an interview, for her eyes to glaze over and her start to literally look up in the sky, as if the rapture could happen right during the interview. And what I think a large number of Americans don't realize is that a large number of leading Republican lawmakers are exactly the same way. And that plays into their support of Israel. It has nothing to do with what's good for Israel. Believe you me, some of these Republicans, they get an absolutely blinded, like you struck them in the head with a 2x4. They get an absolutely blinded look on their face if you remind them that Israel is full of Jews. That is not what Israel is for in their weird millenarian religious crackpot minds. But one way or another, even if you take them out of the equation, you have an ongoing, creeping, illegal occupation going on here. And until the Israeli government is held accountable for that and told to stop by the only power on earth that can do that, which is America, I don't see this blind spot doing anything but getting worse. I mean, what are you supposed to do with the Palestinian people? That is the ultimate question here that you have to put to a theoretical, disembodied Israeli governmental mind that presumably has a will and a program. You have to say to that mind, what do you want to do with the Palestinian people? I think that disembodied, just generations-long mind of Israel internal and foreign policy would be, we want them not to be. We want no more Palestinians in the world. Or we want them all to emigrate, even though we don't let them do that. We want them all gone. And we're not really picky about how that happens. We want all of this land for ourselves. So books like this are explosive for me because I end up arguing with the author. This author knows a lot about the subject, a lot more than I do. So I learn a lot from every one of these books. It's possible that this author will really teach me. In fact, it's inevitable that this author will really teach me a lot. And naturally, I'm going to want to write about that process. I will for Open Letters, but I would love to do it for a larger audience, but I don't right now have that larger audience. Right now, I don't have a much bigger venue, not that you could get much smaller than my beloved Open Letters. I don't right now have a much bigger venue that will allow me to do explicitly political book reviews. And I'd like that, but I will keep trying. But anyway, Blind Spot we start off our TBR torture. But that is the only really grim book of these 5, mainly because it's ongoing. It's an active concern now. There's more grim notes in this little video, but not like that. So the next we're going to do fiction, nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction, and the next one coming up is fiction, and this is Big Sky by Kate Atkinson. This is the new Kate Atkinson. It is a murder mystery. It's a Jackson Brodie murder mystery. So this is an author who has successfully bridged the causeway between very seriously taken literary fiction that's reviewed in the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and the New York Times, and literary quote-unquote murder mysteries. And this is one of those. Every once in a while, you get the impression the author just wants to relax and write a murder mystery. That's what this is. This comes out in June. Let me read you a little bit about it. In 2004, Kate Atkinson introduced readers to beloved private investigator Jackson Brodie in Case Histories, which is the Kate Atkinson book that everyone I know who's read this author and read that book has loved it. Jackson Brodie quickly became one of the most iconic detectives in contemporary fiction. The best-selling series went on to receive waves of critical acclaim, became a big hit BBC television series, and has sold nearly 1 million copies. After a 9-year hiatus, Jackson Brodie returns in the highly anticipated novel Big Sky. In this triumphant novel, Jackson has relocated to a quiet village in North Yorkshire. God help us. It's picturesque, but there's something dark or lurking behind the tranquility of a seaside landscape. Yes, I would imagine that would be an entire village full of people, each one of whom, including the little infants, believes they are completely infallible. That's pretty dark, and it gets a little wearing in the course of even one day. I think when I was in Yorkshire, the last time I was in Yorkshire, even the dogs were correcting me on how I picked up their own poop. Jackson has been hired by a suspicious wife to trail her unfaithful husband, but a chance encounter with a desperate man tips Jackson off to a larger ring of deception and back into the trail of someone from his past. Old secrets and lies intersect, and the result is a dazzling new novel full of humor, wit, and shocking secrets by one of the best writers of our time. That last part I agree with. One of the best writers of our time. I'll read her if she writes anything. She could write a cookbook, and I would read it. And this comes out in June, and I believe we get the paperback of Transcription in April. I think that the paperback of Transcription, I think, is right around the corner. That was her last book, and that Transcription was immensely satisfying because you read it and you honestly have to double track over and over again. I thought the reading experience alone of that book, let alone the plot or the emotional satisfaction, the reading experience alone was so much fun because it's such a complicated book, and it doesn't appear that way on the surface. So that's one where I am chomping at the bit to get the trade paperback and read it again. That's a perfect example of why I love to reread books. Then this next one is a little bit on the grim side, but it's history. Everybody's long dead. It's a 100-year anniversary of an event that science geeks will know, but that most people don't know. It's actually a very important event. But this is by Matthew Stanley, and it is Einstein's War: How Relativity Triumphed Amid the Vicious Nationalism of World War I. And let's see here. Albert Einstein is the most iconic thinker of all time. That might be true. It shouldn't be, but it might be. But the story behind his ascent to worldwide celebrity and the success of his groundbreaking theory of relativity is often ignored. In the midst of the bloody horror of the First World War, Einstein fought prejudice, starvation, and Germany's tumultuous government to further his investigation into relativity. But none of that would have mattered without the help of one man, A.S. Eddington, who has since faded into the background. Let's see here. Despite the fact that Einstein's country was at war and he was separated by his closest confidants by barbed wire and U-boats, his unlikely partnership with the Quaker astronomer A.S. Eddington proved to be the most important alliance of his career. Though Eddington and Einstein didn't meet in person until years after their friendship first blossomed, their joint effort, Einstein's ideas and Eddington's conviction of their truth, paved the way for Einstein to change the field of science forever. And that happened in a very particular way. Einstein had proposed a theory. And the hallmark of a good theory is that you can make testable predictions, and they will come true. And that's exactly what this story will culminate in, I imagine. In May of 1919, Eddington led a globe-spanning effort to catch a fleeting solar eclipse for a rare opportunity to confirm Einstein's bold prediction that light has weight. It was the result of this expedition, the proof of relativity, that put Einstein on the front pages around the world. And it's the 100th anniversary of that. So I would have called this book something else, and I would definitely have given it a different subtitle, but I can't wait to read it. I could do without, the most iconic intellectual of all time. Okay, fine. And we get Einstein books every year, at least a dozen, and we get at least a dozen Leonardo da Vinci books every year. It would be nice if... When's the last time we had a 400-page popular biography of Gregor Mendel? When's the last time... Okay, it was just a few years ago, we had a great big biography of Max Planck, but nobody read it, except me. Nobody read it. And certainly there's never been a popular biography of Max Planck. And true, last year, I think it was, we had a really good biography of Enrico Fermi. But again, the other towering intellects ought to be better known. But that's okay. That's all right. I'm looking forward to this. I'm hoping... I haven't dipped into the book at all. I'm hoping that the author doesn't waste... I shouldn't put it that. It's not a waste. I think it would be an authorial mistake to put too much emphasis on the war, especially on the fighting. It's the cover. It's that photo of the Somme that's bothering me, because I'm thinking, if you do that, if you spend too much effort on the battlefields of World War I, your story will not recover. That is just not close enough to Einstein. It's true that in his daily life, the war did have an effect. He had food rationing, he was constantly in fear for his physical safety. But I would rather that the story emphasize the Eddington relationship, the second half of the story, and we'll see if it does. This comes out in May in a finished copy, so it's right around the corner. And then this next one, I just got it. I know beans about it, but we'll find out together. This is from Echo Press, and it is Cold Storage by David Cope. This comes out in in September. All right, this is a long way off. It's irresistible. It looks like quasi science fiction. So let's see what we have here. David Cope is responsible for some of Hollywood's biggest thrillers. I've never heard his name. Must be as a writer. He's the screenwriter. Okay, he's the screenwriter behind Jurassic Park. Okay. All right. Eccentric multimillionaire creates an island where he clones dinosaurs. Doesn't explain how he clones Jurassic-era plants, even though they're all over the island. Doesn't explain why on Earth, if he wants to think of this thing as a going concern, as a park, as a place where people will be. No explanation is given for why he clones apex predators in packs. Why on earth would you do that? You can't ever let an audience get close enough to see them. Anyway, all right. He helped to write anyway. Jurassic Park, War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds. Okay, the climactic moment. The tripods are coming up around a crest. They have all-destroying energy beams. Everyone who has lived in the movie has blindly fled from those energy beams, which disintegrate everything around them. Tom Cruise's son and a bunch of ragtag militia carrying virtually nothing in the way of weapons runs over that crest saying, "Come on!" And later on in the movie, the son turns up alive. There is no way that would happen. And so on and so forth. Panic Room. Okay, well, there's a gigantic plot hole at the end of Panic Room. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it doesn't make any sense. There's a gigantic hole at the end of Panic Room. Spider-Man. Oh, God. Okay. The less said, the better. If it's the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the first one, the less said, the better. And Mission Impossible. Okay. The first Mission Impossible. All right. So that's a string of. He must not lack for screenwriting jobs. That's a string of hits. No matter what I think of the integrity of the storytelling. His penchant for adrenaline-pumping adventure has entertained moviegoers across the globe, and now he turns his talents to the literary world with his debut novel. Oh my God, this is his debut novel. Thanks to Cope's signature wit, a story about a catastrophic fungus has never been so funny, though there's plenty of terror and suspense in these pages as well. Like the shark in Jaws, or the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, or the aliens in War of the Worlds, Cope's mutant antagonist finds a way to wreak havoc. Written in Cope's cinematic and uniquely entertaining style, Cold Storage contains the thrill of Michael Crichton and the horror of Stephen King, and is like nothing else you've ever read. Okay. All right. Which is it? It either contains the thrill of Michael Crichton and the horror of Stephen King, or it's like nothing else I've ever read, because I've read those two. So which is it? I was wondering, what is the book about here? When Pentagon bioterror operative Roberto Diaz is sent to investigate a suspected biochemical attack, he found something far worse, a highly mutative organism capable of extinction-level destruction. Sounds like some of my marriages to Deb. He contained it and buried it in a cold storage deep beneath a little-used military repository. Now, after decades of festering in a forgotten sub-basement, yeah, we're definitely in Deb marriage territory. The specimen has found its way out and is on a lethal feeding frenzy. Only Diaz knows how to stop it. He races across the country to help two unwitting security guards, one an ex-con, the other a single mother. Okay, so this is a screenplay. Over one harrowing night, the unlikely trio must figure out how to quarantine this horror again. All they have is luck, fearlessness, and a mordant sense of humor. Will that be enough to save all of humanity? In an interview in Entertainment Weekly, the author explained the origin story for Cold Storage. The novel, quote, began as a screenplay idea, big surprise there, but much like its own monster, the outline began to grow rapidly and spread beyond the confines of a movie, close quote. Cope was partly inspired by movies such as Invasion of the Body Snatchers and other horror movies that have social... Okay. So this is a debut novel from someone who has never read a book before. Who knows what that's going to be like? He's certainly seen and written lots of movies, but he's never read a book. You could talk to him all day long about the inspirations for his novel, his debut novel, and no literature would come up. So this is probably going to be on a line-by-line basis. God awful. But it might be really entertaining. And that's what I'm here for. So, and then the last book is the one where I told you the mystery, where I have read chunks of it, but I have not read the book. And this comes out soon, I believe. Yeah, this is June. This comes out in June, and I can't wait to just sink in and read the whole of this. It's a great big thing. This is Arundhati Roy. This is My Seditious Heart, a big fat collection of her nonfiction. She wrote The God of Small Things, and it won every award that wasn't nailed down, and it won the hearts of millions of readers. And then she took 2 decades off. And then she wrote The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, that also won lots of hearts. Not as many as I would have liked to see, but it still has legs. It's still gaining readers all the time, and it will be out in paperback, and that will help it. That certainly helped The God of Small Things. But in between then, of course, because she's a writer, she didn't stop writing. She just wrote nonfiction, and this is a big, fat collection of that nonfiction. There'll be a lot of stuff in here about the politics of a region of the world that Americans tend not to read political essays about. And that is fascinating. We've got... oh, God, look at all this stuff. Okay. Yeah, this is just full of... well, let me read you a little bit about it. The pub sheet is not very loquacious. It's not very big. But this is the book. It's a big, thick thing coming out. Bookending her 2 award-winning novels, The God of Small Things and The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, My Seditious Heart collects the work of a 2-decade period when Arundhati Roy devoted herself to the political essay as a way of opening up space for justice, rights, and freedoms in an increasingly hostile world. Taken together, the essays speak in a voice of unique spirit, marked by compassion, clarity, and courage. Oh, I can't wait. There's going to be a ton in this book that I have not read, and that is just a feast. Just a feast. I'm so glad that the author wanted to make this book. A lot of this is going to be regional Indian politics. I'm glad the author wanted to collect all this stuff, and I'm glad the publisher, who is this brave person? Haymarket Books. I'm really glad that they're deciding to take a chance on this. This stuff deserves to be in a book. The pieces that I've read deserve to be in a book, and there's lots in here that I haven't read, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And there you go. There's a little TBR torture for you on Friday, or rainy Friday here in Boston. So we have My Seditious Heart, a big, fat collection of Arundhati Roy's nonfiction. We have Cold Storage, by David Cope, which is not only the first book that he's ever written, but also the first book that he's ever read. We have Einstein's War, about the transatlantic collaboration between Einstein and essentially his Huxley, a man who was absolutely determined to call him a genius and to prove him one by testing the theory of relativity. Then we have Big Sky, the new murder mystery from Kate Atkinson. Those of you who fans of hers that have only read her big literary novels will see a whole different side of her here, a slightly more plot-heavy side of her. And then Blind Spot, by a seasoned Israel-Palestine negotiator, about the history of America's idea of Palestine and whether or not that's gotten in the way of those negotiations. So it's a big, involving Friday Reads. I hope you saw something that interested you. Of course, you'll tell me about it in the comments field. But I'm going to wrap this up for now. But I'll be back. We have other things to talk about. So I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.